honored to have you in the group. Today we're going to go back to basics. I have had a lot of requests about beginners practices, what yoga is about, and getting back to basics. I love getting back to basics. I think it's the most important thing. I think that we do need to know what we're practicing, how we're practicing, and how it's going to benefit us. So I am going to read a little bit to you about what Iyengar is talking to us about yoga. He says yoga is light, which once lit will never dim. The better your practice, the brighter the flame. The primary aim of yoga is to restore the mind to simplicity and peace and to free it from confusion and distress. This sense of calm comes from the practice of yogic asana and pranayama. Unlike other forms of exercise which strain muscles and bone, yoga gently rejuvenates the body. By restoring the body, yoga frees the mind from the negative feelings caused by the fast pace of modern life. The practice of yoga fills up the reservoirs of hope and optimism within you. It helps you to overcome all obstacles on the path to perfect health and spiritual contentment. It is a rebirth. When there is perfect harmony between body and mind, we achieve self-realization. Yoga teaches us that the obstacles in the path of our self-realization indicate themselves in physical or mental indisposition. When our physical state is not perfect, this causes an imbalance in our mental state, which we in yoga call chitta vritti. The practice of yoga helps us to overcome the imbalance, and yogic asana or poses can cure physical ailments and redress unsteadiness in the body. Uneven respiration is also an indication of some sort of an ailment, and yoga addresses that with pranayama. Asanas tone the whole body. They strengthen bones and muscles, and they correct our posture. They improve breathing, and they increase our energy. This physical well-being has a strengthening and calming impact on our mind. Practicing asana cleanses the body. Just as a goldsmith heats gold in fire to burn out impurities, similarly asana, by increasing the circulation of fresh blood through the body, purge it of the disease and toxins which are consequence of an irregular lifestyle, unhealthy habits, and poor posture. Regular practice of the stretches, twists, bends, inversions, the basic movements of asana restore strength and stamina to the body. Asana, together with pranayama, rectify physical, psychological, and physiological disorders. They have a positive impact on the effects of stress and disease. Among the many ailments that benefits from the practice of asana are osteoarthritis, high and low blood pressure, diabetes, asthma, anorexia, anxiety, stress, reproductive disorders, immune deficiencies, right? The body and mind are in a state of constant interaction. Yogic science does not demarcate where the body ends and the mind begins, but approaches both as a single integrated entity. The turmoil of daily life brings stress to the body and the mind. This creates anxiety, depression, restlessness, and rage. Yoga asana, while appearing to deal with the physical body alone, actually influence the chemical balances of the brain, which in turn improves one's mental state of being. The obstacles to this perfect balance were outlined by the sage Patanjali some maybe over 2,000 years ago in the Yoga Sutras. Historians disagree on exact dates, but it is known that the sutras or aphorisms on the philosophy and practices of yoga were compiled sometimes between 300 BC and 300 AD. And the entire corpus was called Patanjala Yoga Darshana. So in the final chapter in the Samadhipada, Patanjali discusses the disorders that are the root cause of suffering. According to this sage, Physical ailments create emotional upheaval. The task that yoga addresses. So the alleviation of pain is even today one of the main reasons for the journey into yoga for most people. Yoga asana works specific parts of the body to soothe and relax the mind. Inverted asana, for instance, simultaneously calm and stimulate the brain. These asana activate glands and vital organs by supplying fresh blood to the brain, making it alert but relaxed. Yoga possesses the unique ability to calm our nerves. The nerves function as the medium between the physiological body and the psychological body. Practicing yoga has the holistic impact of relaxing the body and calming the mind. I'm also going to go through the stages of yoga with you, but I do want to say that Iyengar was very interested in the fact that we carry a lot of stress in our modern world, and he was saying that we cannot come to a state of yoga with the amount of stress that we have. And so he did formulate these restorative practices that use bolsters, blankets, blocks, props, all those things. So he is the guy who invented all of that stuff, and he used it to de-stress the body so that the body could heal itself, so the body could unify itself. Yoga also comes in stages, right? And so the classical yoga from the Natha lineage is taught in different stages. And if you've ever taken one of my 300s or another one of my workshops, I do go over these stages with you. And today I'm going to be talking about the Arambha Avashta stage, which is the beginning stage. And so yoga does happen in this Arambha Avashta stage for most people, especially in the West. And I do want to explain what that means. It is a beginning stage. So here one is first becoming familiar with one's body, exploring yoga asana at the level of gross anatomy as one learns the basic forms and action within the asana. BKS Iyengar refers to this stage as scratching the surface. The objective is to get a feeling for the wholeness of each asana, cultivating steadiness and ease while exploring how to expand and refine the breath. Remember that the breath is of utmost importance in yoga, and we practice doing breath consciously while we are exploring the body and the spaces and the sensations that are happening. And so this stage is quite important. And I think that in the West, present company excluded, I think that a lot of people surpass that and they jump right into a really difficult asana practice, and they miss it. They miss the cultivating, the sensation, and the awareness, and the gross anatomy, the identification of the gross anatomy that's going on in the body, these basic things. And we go too fast, is what I'm saying. It's fast. I like a savage practice every now and then, but I've gone through these stages, right? And then when I do see someone in that same class as me, I'm like, wow, you poor thing. I kind of feel bad for them. It's like you're missing it. You're missing really exploring what this space feels like in these shapes. And so that stage is of utmost importance. Again, I'll say it again. It's called Arambha Avashta. So, and there are different other stages that come after. There's a vessel stage, there's an increase stage, and there's a consummation stage. And so the ancient yogis believed that we had to really go through these steps in order to understand what we were embodying in this asana. So the beginning stages are really important. They're about your connection to this vessel, right? Your connection to the sensation and the awareness of that. So if you see behind me, I got Fred. There's Freddie. And I got chair, I got my blocks, I got another mat. We're gonna use the wall. I mean, we're gonna do basic things, but I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna talk about Fred for a moment. There's the gross anatomy, right? So yoga surrounds itself around our spine, yogis. Hi, Freddie. And so yoga surrounds itself around our spine. And I'm going to turn them around a little bit. Here we have 7 cervical vertebrae. We have 12 thoracic vertebrae, and I'll turn them to the side. And then we have these 5 lumbar vertebrae, and then we have our sacrum. If we actually look at Fred a little close, I mean, I know you can't get that close, but the shoulder girdle attaches itself to your spine. And your pelvic girdle also attaches itself to your spine at the sacrum. So we are, fundamentally working yoga asanas around this axial skeleton, which is my skull, my vertebral column, right? My rib cage and my sternum. That's what's moving. Our arms and our legs are attached to our spine, right? It's like my shoulder complex is attached to the spine and out come my arms. My pelvic complex is attached to my spine at the sacrum and out come my legs. So here's really where we have this distal mobility happening in a yoga practice, or the awareness of that. And here, I really want to find this proximal stability, right? So anything that's closest to the axis of the body, I really want to create a strengthening, not an armor. I don't like that word armor because then you don't move, right? We want to find the stability so that we can find our mobility. And so all the poses really are surrounding this area of the body. There's 7 ways of freedom, and I talk about that in a teacher training or in workshops. The first one is axial extension. So when I ask you to root to rise, right, I'm asking you to really engage the pelvic complex, lift up in the pelvic floor, squeeze the lower belly together, and then press up from the ground up, all the way up out of your head, and we create this space in between the vertebral body, right? So we do have natural curves to our spine, and we need to have them. That's the way God made us. Our cervical spine moves in mostly all directions. It flexes, it extends, it laterally moves side to side, and it also rotates from side to side, right? Our thoracic spine has limited movement. If you look at the latticing of the spine, it's protecting our vital organs, so it doesn't move very much. It has limited movement. It loves flexion. It doesn't extend, only maybe at T1 and maybe at T11 and T12. It goes with the cervical and the lumbar vertebrae. But for the most part, it's a stable thing. And it likes axial extension. It likes to have space being created in it. But it does fold forward. It likes it's a kyphotic place. And then this lumbar spine has a lot of movement in it. This is where we find most of our extension. Lordotic curves in the spine, right? Also lordotic curves happen up here in the cervical spine. This extension, this back bending happens here and here, right? But we need to be mindful of the dumping. And it's really nice to move the spine and find mobility within the spine. But these structures that surround the spine, my intrinsic muscles or my deep muscles and my superficial muscles of the back, are going to be working a lot in the yoga pose to help strengthen, stabilize, and move us around so that these guys can find their freedom, right? And so that's a basic way to say that every movement of a yoga pose really involves the spine. We move the spine and the arms move. We move the spine and the legs move, right? So again, seven ways of movement are axial extension. Right? We have flexion of the spine. We have extension of the spine, which is back bending. We have lateral movement, which is side to side. And then we have rotation, which is a turning or twisting movement, right? So those are really the basic things that we're going to talk about today in our poses. We're going to go through the 7 ways of freedom. I love Fred. So I do want you to get out some, if you have a chair, grab it, put it against the wall, make sure there's a sticky mat, get your blocks out, get blankets out. We're going to try to use a lot of this stuff. And we're going to start seated for a moment. We're going to come back to the Zabu, and I just want you to find your breath. So remember that yoga surrounds itself around your spine, but it's the breath that's moving the spine. It's doing this spinal oscillation, right? So every time we breathe, we are also moving the spine. So remember that the universe breathes us. And this is look, the body is the first point of awareness, my love. So it's a basic thing. Yoga is teaching you that this vessel that we live in is our first point of awareness about that thing. And every time you breathe and you take a deep breath, we're breathing in a divine space. So I want you to just sit, find a seat, and I want you to arrive in this moment, in this present moment. And I'm going to ask you to feel some sensations. And so start to notice. We don't try to make anything happen. We don't try to force anything to happen. We notice. So I want you to notice maybe a lift up in the pelvic floor. I want you to notice maybe a squeezing together of the belly towards the midline. And I want you to notice you lifting up from the sits bones and creating space in between the vertebrae. Then I want you to notice a slight tilting of the chin as we press the head gently back towards an imaginary wall. I want you to notice the relaxation of the shoulders as those breaths that you're taking are creating length in between the vertebral bodies. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the nose. Here's axial extension. Notice yourself being breathed. Notice yourself breathing. Take one more deep breath in this axially extended place. If you'd like to set an intention for your practice, do so, yogis. Yogis, I am going to go through the other 6 ways of movement of the spine. Here we have axial extension. As I'm lifting up from the sits bones up through my head, I'm rooting to rise. Anything that touches the ground, I want to feel a lift. Now, my teachers taught me that every movement happens from the hips down and from the shoulders out, right? In this distal movement. So I do have to mindfully look at these places so that I don't dump into them. And it manifests in our feet and on our legs. So right now, I feel the sides of my legs, the sides of my feet. I feel my sits bones on the zabu. I'm noticing all these things into the ground, but I'm not dumping into them. I'm pressing away without negating the presence. I'm rebounding. I want to find this rebounding quality, and I want to find this length. As I lift up in the pelvic floor, squeeze the belly towards the midline, chin slightly goes towards chest, chest towards chin, and I press my head gently back against the wall that's not there. And I breathe. Axial extension. Good. Now I want you to interlace your fingers. This is called Baddha Angulyasana, bound limbs. Then turn your hands around and then press them towards me. And then lift your arms up here. We're still in that axial extension. And then let's go to the right. Now we're finding lateral flexion. The spine is moving sideways. And then come back towards the midline. And then we're going to the left, right? The spine is moving sideways in one plane. It's not rotating. It's just moving in one piece to the side. And then come up. Good. Take a breath. Place your hands behind your head. Let your head drop into your hands. And we feel some extension of the spine. And then come back up towards the center. Release your hands and place your left hand on your right knee. And here we find rotation of the spine. Come back to the midline, inhale. Exhale, turn or twist to the left, placing your right hand on your left knee. Here's rotation of the spine. And coming back towards the midline. So we just did side bending, we did back bending, and we did rotation. And now we're going to do flexion. So come up off of your zabu if you're on one, and just bring your knees together. I'm going to do this with the zabu in front of me. This is going to be easy. Child's pose. So I'm just going to fold forward and place my forehead on the zabu. So this is flexion of the spine. And I could also run my hands along the back of my spine, and I could see that there's spaces in between my vertebrae, as opposed to if I come up, right, and I lift my chest and I find this anterior tilt of the pelvis, the spinous process goes towards each other. They go towards each other. So this is extending because this is creating a big, nice length in the front. It's not compressed. And then come back towards the midline. So take a breath here, yogis, and find a nice neutral spine again. That axial extension. So I do want you to pay attention to this. So I'm going to go into a flexion. Again, I'm going to tuck the chin, and things compensate. So if I tuck the chin into the chest, I'm also flexing the cervical spine. And then the more that I round down in this compression, the whole back of the spine. The thoracic spine loves this, right? But if I keep on going down in this fashion, my lumbar spine will start to find flexion as well. And notice that feeling. And then gently get your chin out of your chest if you have that range of motion. Place your forehead on the ground and then just come up out of that for a moment. Now I'm going to take my Zabu away and I'm going to show you neutral spine. We're going to find this length as much as possible. So this is a completely different way to move the spine forward. Let's try arms over the head. Now right here, I want to find axial extension. And I want to hold this space. I'm still breathing. I'm not holding my breath, but I want to find this length. So how far can I find this length all the way forward? This is not flexing my spine. This is trying to find length as much as I can. And if I cannot place my forehead on the ground, lift my pinkies, lift wrists, and then keep on sitting back towards the heels. I want to find as much space as possible and breathe here. So engage the pelvic floor, squeeze the belly towards the midline, feel your shins on the ground. Inhale, come up, keep your arms and ears together, keep creating space, and then come up all the way. Create space here. And then arms come down to the side. I want you to start to experiment with different things. Some poses demand you to do certain things in poses. Not all poses that fold forward are flexion. So this is another question. These are how am I exploring this vessel? What is the gross anatomy that's going on? What are the intention of the poses that you're going into, yogis? Yeah? Not every forward fold is a child's pose. Good. So take a breath here. We're just going to come onto all fours. And I do want you to press your hands into the floor. Look, if you have any wrist issues, you could always use a wedge, right, underneath your hands. I brought that out so you could see it. Or you could place your hands on blocks, yogis. So, but if you don't have those issues, pressing the index finger and thumb into the ground and corkscrew your hands up. Fingertips into the ground and press away from the floor to tone the forearms. You never want to stretch your wrists. What you do want to do, yogis, is engage the forearms. So if you have blocks because your wrists bother you, and I'm face you so you could see it, I would like you to place your index finger in the inside of that, right on the edge of the inside of the block, and your thumbs come on the inside of the block. Yeah, and that way you can really ease the pain or any kind of discomfort you might have in your radiocarpal joint. Okay. All right. So let's just do a couple of flexion and extension poses. And this is primary and secondary curves of the spine. So just let the belly drop gently and lift the head. This is an inhale. I lift my eye gaze. And then on the exhale, I'm going to bring the chin in towards the chest and round the spine and then kind of look up towards my belly button. And then do that again. Let the belly drop, lift the head. Inhale, here's extension of the spine, cervical spine and lumbar spine curves. And as I tuck the chin in towards the chest, I round the spine and I look down up towards my belly button. Here's flexion of the spine. And let's do that again. Let the belly drop, lift the head, inhale. And then tuck the chin into the chest and round the spine on the exhale. And find a nice neutral spine. And so we did them seated, but I also want you to let the hips go to the right and let's look to the left. Here's a side bend of the spine. And come back to the center, let the hips go to the left and you look to the right. Come back to the center. Let your right elbow come down and you look to the left. Here's rotation of the spine. Come back up. And then let your left elbow come down to the ground and you look to the right. Rotation of the spine. And come back up towards the midline. And take a breath. So let's find that axial length. We're going to extend the right arm forward, left leg back, roll everything towards the midline, and then lift your right arm and right leg no higher than shoulder and hip height. Lift up, yogis, and take a breath. Reach forward and reach back. Keep on breathing. And then release that. Taking the right leg back, the left arm forward. Inhale, reaching arm and leg up, only shoulder and hip height, no higher. Really engage the core musculature. Press away from the floor with that right hand and take a moment and then release that. And breathe here, yogis. Tuck your toes underneath you and sit back onto your heels. And breathe. Good, yogis, you're doing great. We're going to grab a block and we're going to come to the wall. So I'm going to use these little blocks. You can use any block you like. We're going to do Tadasana on the wall. We're going to do a lot of poses on the wall, so I'm going to move this chair away for a moment. Actually, let's start with Tadasana in the chair, which is a good idea. So I'm going to sit into the chair. I don't want to sit all the way back into the back edge of the chair. If you're using a chair, you do want to come to the kind of the front of the chair. Your feet are planted into the ground, and I'm going to place a block in between my knees. I want to find the sits bones, and I want to root to rise. I want to find that axial extension. Lift up in the pelvic floor, squeeze the belly towards the midline. Finding that space. If I press my heels into the ground, I'm going to feel my glutes engaging. I'm going to squeeze the block with my knees, and I'm going to take a breath. Here is Samastitihi, right, in the chair. Tadasana Samastitihi. So this is an active pose. We're in a chair, but it feels crazy. Crazy active. So I'm going to keep my legs in the same position. I'm just going to bring my arms up over my head for Urdhva Hastasana in the chair. Tadasana Urdhva Hastasana. Engage those elbows. Remember, your elbows are the brain of your arms. Squeeze your knees towards the midline. Chin doesn't lift up, yogis. Try to bring it in, not tucking, but down and lifting. The chest is lifting up towards that. Take a moment. Engage those arms. And then release that. Arms come up. This time interlace all fingers for Baddha Angulyasana. Lift your arms up. Those palms up. Engage the elbows. Squeeze the knees. Take a breath. Finding that axial extension. And then release that. So yogis, we're going to do the same 3 things on the wall. My feet are away from the wall, but I could feel my butte on the wall, right? So I really want to squeeze, press all 4 corners into the ground. So yogis, everything starts, in a functional approach, everything starts from here down. I'm looking at the alignment from here down and from here out. And so I need to lift up in the pelvic floor, engage the pelvic complex, right? So I'm not gripping and I'm not clenching my glutes. What I'm doing is I'm lifting up and my glutes engage, right? My quadriceps are working. They are contracted as my hamstrings are lengthening. I feel the insteps lifted, and I'm just going to stand here, chin not up. I want to find my axial extension. Then I'm going to bring my arms up over my head. Really engage, yogis, those elbows. Take another breath. Then interlace your fingers and press the palms up towards the ceiling. And then release that. It's a lot of work in these basic poses. And you could also have used 2 blocks, one in between your knees and one in between your hands. That's totally usable. All right, yogis. If you need blocks, bring them close to you. I do want to start with these Virabhadrasanas, actually Utthita Trikonasana first, but I want you to come into this Tadasana that we were just in. Just feel yourself onto the wall. Lift up away from yourself. And bring your hands to heart center. Gently bend your knees and step out to a separate leg position or jump out. And take a breath. Turn your right toes to the right and turn your left toes in. So my arms are nice and straight. And I'm going to reach that right arm to the right, and then I'm going to tilt these arms in one piece for a triangle pose, right? So here I am trying to go down towards my foot. Now, I'm going to come up for a moment, and I'm going to teach you that modification. You could use a chair or a block, and I'm going to choose to use the chair. So if I jumped out and here I was in this position, I want to turn the right toes to the right, turn the left toes in at about a 45-degree angle. This left hip rolls in a bit, and as I reach my right arm to the right, Utthita. And then I tilt the arms in one piece, and my hand is going to go right onto that chair. As I lift my eye gaze to the left hand, if anything is going on with my neck, I could always look down towards the foot that's on the ground. Take a moment. And then gently come up. And then bring all 10 toes facing the front again. Take a moment. Inhale, lengthen, and then turn to the right again. We're going to do everything to the right side, and then we're going to do it to the left. I want you to bend the right knee, and I want you to come into this warrior 2. So remember this alignment here, right? Shoulder or armpit to hip. So I'm going to try to bring my knee right towards that chair. If I can, I'm looking towards the middle finger of the right hand. Warrior 2. And then gently straighten that front leg. And then let's bring our arms back down to the side. Arms out to the side again. Turning the right toes to the right and turning the left toes in. Bending that right knee. And then again, reaching to the right, placing your hand on your quadricep or the chair, and then lifting the left arm up over your ear for Utthita Parsva Konasana. Inhale, come up for warrior two. Straighten the front leg and then bring your hands down to side. Bend your knees, yogis, and then hop back towards the midline. And take a moment. We're going to move the chair to the other side and do those three onto this side so that you can see it on this side. So I'm going to hop out, or not. You don't have to hop. Arms out to the side. I'm going to turn the left toes to the left and turn the right toes in. So this right hip comes in, right? It rolls in a bit. But I want to lift up and engage the quadriceps as I reach to the right for Utthita Trikonasana. I'm in this one plane. I lower that left hand down and I reach the right arm up. Engage your quads, yogis. Lift up in the pelvic floor and reach that right arm up towards the ceiling. You want to not dump into this left hand, right? You want to reach up out of that. Take a moment. Noticing everything that you feel in the sensation of the side body. Inhale, come up. Bringing those all 10 toes facing the front. So we stayed in this open position, so we'll stay here again. So open your arms out to the side, turn the left toes to the left. So this time your heel is in front of the arch as you bend that left knee. And you're gonna find this warrior two position. Remember the armpit and hip alignment. And then take another breath. Straighten that left leg. Turn the left toes towards the front of your mat and bring the right toes towards the front of your mat. Arms down. Lift up, pressing hips forward. Inhale, arms up, engage quads. Turn the left toes to the left. Come back into that warrior two position, yogis. Good. Now, we're going to reach to the left, place the left hand on your quadricep or the chair, and lift the right arm over your head and coming into that side angle. Press away from the quad or the chair, reaching the right arm over your ear, finding a line from the fingertips of the right hand to the side of the right foot, digging the right heel into the ground and pressing the left knee back towards the wall. Taking another breath, yogis, sit and then inhale, come up for warrior two. And then finding all 10 toes facing the front. Bend the knees and come back to the center line. Take a moment. So again, I'm going to use the chair for this one movement. We're going to do it in the chair and then standing. So here's a variation of warrior one. If you have a chair, you're going to just step through the chair, right? So one leg is bent. And then I have the other leg. And I'm going to sit, I'm going to bend the knee, and I'm going to place both hands on the back of the chair. So this back leg is bent. So the shin is parallel to the floor. My toes are tucked, and my heel is lifted of the back leg. But my shoulders and my hips, they're square to the front. So I really want to use this pose. This is a great pose for hip flexion. This is a great pose. And especially for a beginning person, right? I could feel all of this working, the sensation of this hip flexor. And I really want to start to lift the chest because I have the ability to use the chair. And take a breath. And then gently come out of that and just place that left foot on the ground. Keep your right knee bent. We could also come into a warrior two on the chair. Take one more deep breath here, yogis. And then shift your eye gaze, place your hands on the chair, and then scooch yourself up and out of that. Let's do the other side. So I'm going to slide myself through the chair, right? I'm going to keep my left leg bent. Now, I'm not going to bring my leg over the chair, yogis. I got to bring it behind the chair and turn, right? And so it's like Anjane, right? But this leg is bent, the back leg. Now lift up your chest and just start to feel that. You're going to feel a little extension in the back, maybe. But just take a moment here and you'll feel a little rotation of the spine as well. Noticing the sensation in the hip flexors. And then take a breath. Just place that right foot down on the ground. So bring the heel down, right? Keep that left knee bent and then come into your warrior two. Noticing the sensation, yogis, in the body. Taking a breath. And then release that. Good. So we come out of that. Now, yogis, I'm going to place the chair here for a moment. We're going to come back onto the wall. Before we go into warrior one, I want to come into a lateral movement. So bringing the arms over the head and interlacing the fingers or not. I want you to open up your feet a tiny. And just press hips forward. Lift up in the pelvic floor and touch the ceiling with your fingers, and let's go to the right. And then come back up to the center. Press feet down, lift hands up, axial extension, and then let's find lateral extension, a lateral flexion of the spine. Inhale, come up. And then release that. Bringing feet together, yogis, hopping out to the side. Good. Arms come up. So palms are facing each other. We're going to turn to the right and we're going to bend the right knee. So you keep that heel of the left foot down and coming into this warrior one. Variation of warrior one. Right? You feel a little rotation of the spine here. And we feel this lift, maybe a little extension. Take a breath and then come back towards the midline. So bring arms up, engage those elbows, turn to the left. Keep that right heel down as we bring this right shoulder forward. Then come back towards the midline and take a breath. Beautiful, yogis. Bring your chair to the wall. So I'm going to face the back of the chair to you. Sorry. And I'm going to sit side saddle on the chair. We're going to do a twist, Vajrasana. So my knees are facing the front. My hands are forward. I'm just going to bring my hands to the back of the chair and I'm going to look over my left shoulder. You could put a block in between your knees if you need to. So here's a rotation of the spine. Good. Release the head first, then the body. Yeah, let's do the other side. So move the chair. Sit. Knees facing forward, right hands forward. Lengthen. Find that axial extension before you move on an inhale. And on the exhale, we twist. And then we look over the right shoulder. And then release that. Finding that axial extension, yogis. Good. Come up, yogis. We're going to do one last thing on the wall. So if you have a block and you'd like to use the block, I like to use the block. So the block goes right by the wall, just so that, or not, depending on where you're at. Because I want to keep this chair this way so that you can see it. Actually, you could still see me because there's a space there. So I'm going to place my heel of my right foot onto the block and the ball of the foot on the chair. I'm going to use the wall to place my left foot on the chair. And I'm going to lift my arms up and I'm going to turn towards the wall and I'm going to place my hands on the wall for Utthita Marichasana. Here's another twist. And then look forward, then release the bind. Gently, yogis, come up off of that prop. So I'm just going to move it to the other side. I'm going to place my left foot or left heel on the block, ball of the foot on the floor, right foot on the chair, arms come up, I turn, hands to the wall. Breathe, yogis. And then gently release that. Good. So yogis, we're going to come onto the floor. Please grab a blanket, get your blanket, your bolster around you, and please have a strap handy. I always love to place a blanket underneath me when I'm working at home, or if there's a studio that we're working that has a blanket and we're doing practices like this. It's important. On good. Yeah. So take a breath. So grab your strap, my dears. We're going to come into Pada Angushtasana Sapta. You're going to grab your strap, and this is a great pose for beginners as well. You're going to grab or loop the strap around the ball of the right foot, and you're going to place your right hand on the strap and your left hand on the strap. I want you to be aware of how the spine feels onto the floor. I want you to be aware of your legs and the gross anatomy of the quadriceps, the hamstrings, the tibialis, right? Everything that's going on with this leg. I want you to feel the flexion of that ankle as we bring the toes towards us, and how the leg or the quadricep extends the knee by contracting. Roll everything in towards the midline, yogis. And then if it's possible for you, start to extend that left leg. Placing your left hand on the top of your left leg, and then start to bring your right leg towards you a little bit. And breathe. Any amount. So the spine is nice and stable here, yogis, and then it allows our legs to do the work. So we're going to open up that leg to the right in external rotation. If you need a bolster or a block or something to put underneath the leg, do that, right? You can do anything you need. The leg doesn't have to touch the ground. You have it with a strap. Just find and feel the external rotation that's happening as my spine is stabilizing. My spine is nice and strong. And then I'm finding some mobility in my hips. Please flex the left toes, flex the right toes as well, engage the right quadriceps. I want you to become aware of this feeling. Take another moment. And then bring the leg back up towards the midline, bringing the femur bone into the socket and feeling the back of the leg stretching. And then release that. We're going to do the other side. So take the left foot into the strap, so the ball of the foot, right? And you're going to kick away. As I flex the foot at the ankle, all 5 toes are facing me. I start to feel the quadriceps contracting, even the tibialis, and I feel the back of the legs stretching. So I want you to start to feel the sensation of that happening. I want you to feel the leg presence, yeah? Then extend the right leg and place the right hand on your quadricep or on top of your leg, and then pull it a little bit more. Can you contract the top of the leg a little bit more? Can we really find how the knee is really helping the whole leg find the sensation, right? Open up the leg to the left. If you need a block or a bolster underneath your leg, please put it there. Don't let your head tilt back, yogis. Remember that Jalarandhara Bandha. Remember tilting chin slightly towards chest, and chest is chasing chin. Pressing your head back against that floor that we're on. And notice the feeling of this external rotation in the hip. Good. Bringing that leg back up towards the midline, yogis, and then pull it a little bit more. Engage the quadriceps, engage the legs, and feel the stretch in the back of the leg. Pull one more time, and then release that. And take a moment. Bring both knees up, yogis, and take a breath. And we're going to sit up or roll up. We're going to come into Janu Shirshasana, Urdhva Mukha, or Adho Mukha, Janu Shirshasana. We're just going to take the right leg out. I'm going to bring the right, wrap the right foot around with a strap. So my left foot is in, like in a tree pose. And I'm going to lift my chin as I press my body forward in this length. Look up. And then release that. Urdhva Mukha Janu Shirshasana. Let's do the other side. So I'm going to take my right foot in, right? And I'm going to pull. As I pull, I lift my chest. A little bit of extension in the cervical spine. And then release that. Both feet together, yogis. Grab a hold of the strap. Paschimottanasana. This time I want you to lengthen. Breastbone goes forward. We're hinging at the hip, not at the waist. And I want you to fold forward. And then I want you to let your eye gaze look at the top of your feet. And then maybe chin and chest start to meet each other. And start to lengthen the spine and breathe. If you need to bend the knees, bend the knees. Inhale, come up. And then release that. If you need a bolster, place the bolster on your shins. We're going to grab the tops of the feet or use the strap and place your forehead on the bolster. This is also Paschimottanasana. Take your breaths. And then gently, yogis, release your bind and place your hands on the bolster and come up gently. We're going to take the bolster behind us. Scoot yourself a little further forward. All right. And then we're going to place our feet together in Sapta Baddha Konasana and just lie back down. So don't let your head drop back. Look at the ceiling, look at the ceiling, look at the ceiling, and gently place your head and the back of your body or your back, right, on the bolster. Take a moment here, yogis, and place the backs of your hands on the floor and let your elbows bend. Notice the sensations here, yogis. And gently, yogis, bring feet onto the mat, knees together. Just take a moment here. Gently roll off of your bolster if you're on one, onto the floor. And you can move the bolster away from you. But yogis, I want you to be here for just a moment. Maybe scoot yourself in front of the bolster if it's too much to go away from it. And then lie on your spine and then find your Shavasana. I like to use the bolster for underneath my knees. And I like to put a blanket over me. Get cozy. Whatever works for you, yogis, get into your Shavasana. So inhale here. Open your mouth and let go. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Finding your peace with your eyes closed. Feeling the warm sensation in the body of comfort and communication. Yogis, you can stay in this Savasana for as long as you need to. But if you do stay in it, make sure that you wake up mindfully, right? And carefully and slowly. If you're waking up with me, yogis, please find some movement, gentle movements. And then roll to the right or to the left and find a seat. So yogis, I hope that going back to basics is always something that you do. We always want to revisit fundamental and foundational poses in yoga. And if you're new to yoga, this is where you really want to start, is in a slower paced place. I mean, we didn't even do one downward dog today yet, right? And so it's about exploring these fundamental standing poses, and just go back to them and revisit. It's very important for us. It's our foundation. And notice how you feel and notice the sensations that arise. Yoga is for you, and the aim of yoga is to set you free from whatever it is that's making you suffer. Yogis, from our home to yours, we wish you health and happiness and love. Sat Nam and Namaste.